Hi everybody, this is Rosa Sharon and I'm back again with another book review. Actually, this is a redo of a book review that was requested to me by a gardener, so I am more than happy to do it once more. This is a book by Angela Hunt, whom I was unfamiliar with before, but I had heard of her. And this is a novel of Salome Alexandra, of the Silent Years. It's called Jerusalem's Queen. And I think that all scholars of the Bible should read this, even though a lot of it is theory, supposition. But I think that Mrs. Hunt really did her research quite well on Shalem Zion, or she was later called Salome, or Salome. And she chose that name, and I won't go into detail why, but it was a new name that she had designated for herself. And it's very intriguing because you see Shalem Zion's perspective versus Kissa's perspective. And the two vary between each other from their point of view. And you've got Kissa, who is a young servant from Egypt. And if you know anything about Egypt and the Holy Land, they don't get along. But interestingly enough, Kissa becomes Shalem Zion's friend, and it's a really quite beautiful friendship. And the political climate of Jerusalem is changing, or I should say Israel is changing, and it just has the revelation of Salome's reign as queen, well, the first queen of Jerusalem. And this is the first time I actually knew that Jerusalem had a queen at one point in time, and it's really quite fascinating, and I highly recommend it to everybody. It is woefully short, which I hated, because even reading it the second time, I absolutely loved every second of it. I was completely riveted, and it just showed how those in power happen to have an iron fist of determination and ostracization. That's not an easy word for me to say without pronouncing it syllable by syllable, ostracization. Now I can say it. But many things changed. Of course, it was a patriarchy, and that actually is very accurate if you know a little bit about just the way that royalty actually works. And throughout history, it doesn't really matter what country it is, it's patriarchy. And of course later on that shifts, and the pendulum swings the opposite direction, more toward the female perspective. And yes, it is quite fascinating, and it's absolutely resplendent in the way that she writes, and you get to see Shalem Zion's perspective and how she views just her servants and what's happening in the court and the temple and the high holy feasts. And she even talks about Esther, and I thought, oh yeah, how apropos, this being the month of Purim. And if you're not familiar with what Esther did, Esther was not Jewish, interestingly enough. Imagine that. But she was sought after by Artaxerxes, and Artaxerxes found her very beautiful, and he was allured by her and her intellect, and she apparently was quite lovely and very fetching, and apparently very charismatic and attractive, and she had all this going for her. But of course, the person responsible was Haman. Haman, I remember my Old Testament. Haman wanted to kill a lot of Jews at the point in time, saying, you know, get rid of them. I thought, oh, this is a going theme within the Bible itself. Let's just eliminate and eradicate the problem, when most likely that isn't the cause of the problem. Whatever. But anyways, he gets what's coming to him and is hung on the gallows, if you know the story. But because of that, Esther was considered a heroine of the time, and they dedicated the Feast of Purim in her honor, and it's Purim right now. And I thought it's interesting, me having my background and knowing where I'm truly from and having a sense of pride in that. And I know pride, I really shouldn't have pride, but I've always known it was ever since I was small. And I tell people this story time and time again, but I had an aunt who traveled the world, lucky dog, and she brought home her treasures, and we had treasures from all over the world. And I'm hoping that I can walk in her footsteps and see the world and experience it and enjoy the culture and the food and the people, because I have so many friends all over the world, and I know that they would be more than happy to welcome me into their home so I wouldn't have to go to a hotel. It's easier that way. I'm frugal. But it's so interesting because she brought home 2 menorahs, and one of those, actually both menorahs were sold during the last auction I ever had before I moved here. But I felt a very deep connection with that menorah. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I felt like, oh my goodness, this is where I am from. I understand these people. I know their struggle, and even though I myself didn't go through it, I get it. And I always felt a connection. I've had a lot of Jewish friends. I have what's called Judar. Please don't hate me. I know it's not a politically correct statement, but I know I can sense when people are Jewish. I don't know what it is. It's just the way they act, their gesticulations, the way they talk. They have a mannerism about themselves, which is really quite what I think is delightful, just because I think that the Jewish people are wonderful, and they always have this sense of confidence about themselves. Even it seems a little bit haughty at times, but they're like that, and I've developed that over the years. I wasn't always like that. I was more demure, and over time I've developed more of a backbone and more courage about who I really am and whose I am. And this book was just another affirmation of my faith, actually, and knowing where I'm from and realizing that next year in Israel 2020, finally. But I'm planning ahead so I can actually go. It's something I've always wanted to do, see my people, get to learn more about Salome. I'd love to learn more about Salome, actually. She's someone I never even knew existed. This is all brand new to me. And there is another book on Salome, and I'd love to read it, actually. I want to do a review. But Jerusalem's Queen was just outstanding. It truly is a phenomenal book. And Angela Hunt, with the former books that she wrote on certain biblical characters, and she's a historical character, so apparently she counts. She's important. She's extremely important, especially in how Israel actually lived its golden years, the heyday, the salad days, as one would say. And there actually is truth to that is historically documented, but there's not that much information. But I'm hoping I could pick up another book about her, because I'm completely riveted. I want to know more. It's that sort of thing, being a history buff, you encounter characters you thought, really? It's sort of the same thing. I love American history, and when I knew about Hamilton, I didn't know that there was more of a story behind Alexander Hamilton. So I've become obsessed with that. Well, not really obsessed with it, but I love the history behind it. And that's basically all I have to say. So until next time, live long, prosper. Ciao, Tootsie.